evening, everyone. I'm Lily, and I'm doing better now. I'm no longer yellow. I am now wisdom teethless, so I'm a bit less wise, so you know what, it's reckless hours. But this time I'm not telling you to vote. That you should still vote. I'm here to talk about magical cardboard again, because it's been a while. And by that I mean like 2 weeks. So sorry, I didn't mean to go this long, but what do you do when you're stuck being yellow and just these bad bruises and stuff, and just like, no. It's like, I don't feel like recording. But I'm back and gonna get back to normal schedule, get back to Frankenstein. But yeah. But even more exciting is next week we have, or is it next week? I think it's next week. It's the 14th, I believe, or is it the 11th? It's one of those two. The March update for Magic Arena is coming out, and with that we get Historic Anthology II. Historic Anthology II, and it's bringing a lot of cool stuff. For those not familiar, every kind of like the halfway point between sets, they're adding these historic anthologies to Arena. That kind of just to shake up the historic format and just add some more tools from all of Magic history to the historic format. So it'll be very exciting. And yeah, and today I'm going to be talking about those cards, but from the context of my favorite format on Arena, which is Historic Brawl, which is exactly what it sounds like. And even more, the Erebos event in a few weeks is actually, the format is going to be Historic Brawl. So you'll actually get to use this information and things like that. And I might do a video leading up to close to that time about, video about that. Just kind of showcasing some of my top Historic Brawl decks that I'm running. And it's not like full deck text, but like here's a quick run through and deck list in the description. If you'd be interested in that, let me know, because I think I'm decent at Historic Brawl. But yeah. Oh, I should also say, hashtag sponsored, hashtag content. I don't really know if I need to do that for this video, but I mean, I am part of the Magic Creator Program, which is mostly just about my Arena content, and this is technically Arena content, so might as well throw that in there. I don't know, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like I'm gonna use the gems I get from like the challenges, probably to buy Historic Anthology too, so I guess it's pretty relevant. But yeah, no, they give me free stuff, so I have to say that they give me free stuff. But yeah, so let's just jump right into it, and I'll kind of explain different things as I go along. Alright, first up we got Secluded Steppe, and this is a whole cycle. It's a cycle of cycling lands. So all the monocolor cycling ones, they're similar to the out of station ones, but they're the better ones. As in, they cost 1 to cycle, not 2. I mean, they're also not deserts, so you don't get like the desert sub-themes. What is wrong with my hair? Something is wrong with my hair, and I don't know why. Hi, I'm off my game because I haven't recorded in 2 weeks, besides to tell people to vote. Yeah, so they all enter the play tapped, and they could be cycled for 1 of their color. So you discard them and they draw a card. And you know what? They seem okay. Like, it's one of those things where it's in Historic Brawl, you definitely, less so than Brawl, but like you are still very much encouraged to be running 3+ color decks if you really want to be that top tier. And the ones that are like monocolor decks and stuff like that, it's like Mono Red Torbran, and you don't want tap lands in that deck. So it's one of those things where it's like, if you're playing out some of the lower power levels, because that's one thing about Historic Brawl, is that you don't have the self-balancing aspect of multiplayer, but because you can only really do it through right challenge, there is the discussion of what power level should we be playing at, and if you're both agreeing to play at lower power level or not playing like max tier, fully cranked out, like go low stacks and whatnot, okay, maybe you're putting them like monocolor and 2-color, it works out. And you know what, this whole cycle, I'm gonna skip over most of the cycle when it comes up because they're pretty much the same evaluation. But if you're 1 or 2 colors, yeah, sure, put it in there. One thing that is nice though is that, I mean, I talk about Golos, but it is just another easy card to put in there. If you are mono or dual color, these 2 cards do increase your lands of different colors types, or different types count for Field of the Dead, which is a good card. But yeah. And obviously, like no, but overall, I think it's just one of those things where it's not like an auto-include replace a land. It's just like, you know what, you might be interested in doing it. And, you know, if you find that you're already a lot of like lands that intertapped, maybe you don't want it. But yeah. And the thing is that oftentimes, like, yeah, I can cycle Slime when I don't need it. But, unlike normal, like standard and stuff, where most decks don't really utilize that much extra mana. One element of Brawl is that you can really not have too much mana. Like, assuming you're still drawing casts and stuff, it's kind of hard to have too much mana. So it's a bit less useful to have that flood prevention on that side, because it's, yeah. First off, we got in terms of the actual cards, we got Nyx's Fleece Light Ram, which is a 0/5, a 2-mana 0/5, that at the beginning of your upkeep, you gain 1 life. I'm not sure about this one. Like, obviously, it's... If in your meta you're having to deal with a lot of aggro stuff, like an 0/5 is pretty decent, and it's also pretty decent if you're playing against things like Mono Red Torbrand and things like that, because it will stop aggression until Torbrand comes down. Even then, it's like they have to have a 3-power creature for it to kill this thing, and it's gaining life and getting that buffer. But if you're in a much more of a control-y meta, and where people are playing more of these slower decks, they're playing Yarok, and they're playing Teferi, and things like that, where they are playing these control things, or like Gitrog, it might not, or even the mid-range, it's like, this isn't that great against mid-range. It's really only those really hard aggro decks that you have to watch out for, that where this is useful. I mean, like, yeah, in terms of if you're playing a dedicated life-dying deck, obviously it could work, because it's like, it's automatic, it does protect yourself there. But really, if you're not taking advantage of that life gain, I'm not as into it. Like, obviously in something like Heliod, this is real solid, because this does essentially say, hey, pick me up, put a +1 counter on your creatures, and these kind of effects are really nice, while still being this actually like decent body for things like mirrors and stuff. And same thing if you're playing like Sorin, Vengeful Bloodlord. Alright, next up we got Phalion Guardian of Thraben. 2 mana, 2/1 with first strike, and non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. Honestly, this is actually real solid against, I mean, obviously, hey, this is a good card if you're playing a creature-based deck, but if you're playing any sort of like White Meanie strategy, or Boros, or really any kind of thing that kind of falls into the more aggressive side of the spectrum, or just at least creature-based side of the spectrum, because one thing that like a lot of the sword decks are doing is that, and that's kind of the middle point, this weird point in Brawl and Historic Brawl they have to deal with when you get into like some of the top tier decks is, if you want to combat some of the top tier decks that are things like Golos and Niv Mizzet and a lot of these go big control decks, you can spend your first 2 turns ramping, whereas but that leaves you exposed to being run over by small decks. I mean, this is standard Magic stuff, but it is kind of exacerbated in this format, where then obviously all of a sudden you're just destroyed by Torbrand. The thing that's nice about this, especially for White Meanie, because it's like mono white is nowhere near as good as mono red. Like, mono red Torbrand, from my experience, is by far just leagues ahead of almost every other aggro deck in the format. Just because it attacks the opponent in a way that committing resources in your deck to defending against Torbrand decks is actually really bad against almost every other kind of deck. Like, most decks, definitely Clarion isn't really that useful, but it's great against Torbrand and things like that. But Valley is nice is that for White Meanie strategy, or like Boros, is that not only is it a decent creature on the offensive, and actually not the worst on the defensive, but it slows down the reaction time to your creatures, and it also slows down the ramp stuff as well. So it's even the thing that they're trying to do that isn't directly helpful, so they're not getting up to their bigger ripes and stuff. It is it's actually really nice. So obviously best in a kind of white weenie strategy, but and I'm not sure if this will let white weenie become more on par with mono red when it comes to aggro, but it'll be interesting to see. Alright, next up we got Ranger of Eos, which is a 4-mana 3/2 that when this comes to play, you may tutor for 2 creature cards of converted mana cost 1 or less. So, it's a tutor, and on a decent body, and you can find some good things. This is probably gonna pop up something over there. No, it didn't. Pop me up here. I pulled up what are the relevant creatures that this thing can tutor. It can pick you up because also it's like what is relevant on turn 4, and that thing is like also one thing I didn't list here is that honestly in like a white weenie strategy this isn't terrible because this does draw you 2 cards essentially, even if they are just like, oh, it's like a Skymarch Aspirate and a Healer Sock or a Dauntless Bodyguard. It still grabs you 2 more creatures that you can play out and refill your hand while still being a decent body for its cost. Okay, decent, it's not great, but it is a body that is a non-zero thing, especially against if you're trying to beat down a control player that doesn't have much board presence. But besides that, you can grab a giant killer if you have a big creature that you need to get out of the way. You can get a Sarah's Ascendant if you're already at that threshold. 1 mana 6/6. You can grab a Soul Warden if you are those life gain decks. You can grab a Cauldron Familiar if you already have your Oven out or something like that. You can grab a Crypt Breaker or a which is from Historic Chapter 1, which is just this great engine. Gutter Bones if you're any sort of sacrifice deck, or if you're doing like Orzhov aggro or like Mardu aggro. Edgewall Innkeeper if you're doing some sort of Celestine Adventure or some variant of that. Elvish Reclaimer, which is also, I mean, I'm playing a Get Rock deck, but Elvish Reclaimer is a card that now can, isn't bad for getting things like Fill the Dead out and things like that. Or a Hungering Hydra, which is like, hey, it's technically a 1-drop, but if you just want a big Hydra or something like that. And right now, those are just like the best things to grab. And honestly, if you have like 2 or 3 of those targets in your deck, that seems real solid and just real good card advantage. So I'm into Ranger of Eos. If you have those 1-drops also in your deck that you want to grab, because the thing is, it's like, oh no, I already drew 1 of them. I mean, even if he's only tutoring up 1 of them, that's still not a bad rate. So I like Ranger of Eos quite a bit. Sigil of the Empty Throne, which is 3 and 2 white for an enchantment. Whenever you play an enchantment, you make a 4/4 Angel of Flying. Honestly, like, this seems kind of weird because I really think this is far too slow for Historic. But in Historic Brawl, this is actually, I think, one of the big payoffs that like a lot of these Enchantress decks really want. Like, unfortunately, this still doesn't have a Bant Enchantress Commander for us, or really anything that isn't like a generic 3-color commander for any combination of stuff for enchantments, like Abzan or I guess we have Vesper. And this is just a real solid payoff for kind of that archetype, and there's not much to say here. It's an enchantment payoff, but an Enchantress text. You're not an Enchantress deck, you maybe don't want this. I shouldn't have to explain this one. Lonely Sandbar, it's the blue cycling land. Yep. Marrow Jerry. Marrow Jerry. It's Jerry. It's a 3-mana 2/2. Other merfolk creatures you control get +1/+1. And whenever you play a merfolk spell, you may tap or untap target permanent. No, I mean, obviously, it's good in Kamina. And honestly, I really like Kamina. Merfolk is one of the best. Like, I'm actually really excited for this in actual Historic because I really want like Merfolk to actually be good, because I like merfolk. I mean, I like tribal decks in general, and I've been playing goblins because it's like the only somewhat viable tribal deck, because elves doesn't quite get there. But if merfolk can get there, I'm into that. But I mean, obviously, it's good in Kamina. We're gonna put in Kamina. Really not using it elsewhere. But Kamina's actually not bad. I've actually had a lot of success with Kamina. And being above the Lord, and that whenever you play a merfolk spell, that is, it's just that's such a flexible ability, because either, like, bare minimum, it kind of makes, it is this weird kind of, your merfolk cost one less to cast. And otherwise, just tapping other big blockers and things like that to get through, for the few merfolk you have that aren't like unblockable and things like that. And oh, that's just so flexible and all that. So I adore Mara or Jerry. Jerry's great. But also, again, in that specific deck, it's not going to be generally used. Hey, this merfolk lord, what deck does it go into? I don't know, maybe the merfolk deck. I'm a genius. Inexorable Tide. It's 3 blue for an enchantment. Whenever you cast a spell, proliferate. Now, I mean, I could see like the appeal of this card, but the thing is that we already have a similar like effect of this, where we have a Flux Channeler, and Flux Channeler is 2 mana cheaper, is a creature and is a body, and I mean, it's not like, I mean, I like Exorbital type over Flux Channeler in normal commander and things like that, because it's like, it's harder to hit and things like that, and because Ward Wipes are much more common. Yeah, in terms of the wanting an enchantment versus a creature with the same effect, Historic Brawl is right now much more on the, I still want a creature because I still want to be able to beat down, because it isn't like there's not 3 other players going to be board wiping if I get it out of control. So I'm unsure about whether it will really see play. Like, the thing is, like, a lot of the decks that really want this, like if you're playing like a Super Friends deck and things like that, and I almost, it's like, is this better than just having another Planeswalker? Because it's like those decks are already pretty high anyway. It's not like you're going to be, okay, play this, now I play 6 cantrips, and all of a sudden I can ultimate play Planeswalker. It's like, no, your hand is going to be full of like bigger stuff and the ramp spells to get there. And I mean, it won't be bad, but I just oftentimes don't see how it would be better than just having another Planeswalker. So I'm not sure. Like, I mean, I think the fact that you don't really see Flux Channeler played kind of speaks to, like, I just don't see this happening. Yeah. I mean, like, what is it, the green one, the Landfall Proliferate one? I mean, that one's a little bit more interesting because it's like, that one's like a little more played because it's, but that one's also much more of like Blossoms and Counters and things like that, and it's, I don't know, neither of them have had an overwhelming presence, which makes me think that Tide also won't have that presence. It's also one that's really weird because it's like, this is way too slow for Historic and doesn't fit into any archetype that is in Historic and doesn't really help enable any of those archetypes. That said, it is cool, and I'll be looking forward to playing with it once we actually have multiplayer. Barrenmoor. It's barren. It's a moor. It's Barrenmoor. It's the black cycling land. Normally this one can go into Git Rock, where it is very good, because it becomes 1 black divination. That sounds cool. Budrukabok. Obviously it's like, if you're playing like a 5-color deck, or like even like, you're not going to run this, and it isn't quite the auto-include that it is in Commander. I should say, hey, Budrukabok, it's essentially, it's a black land that in your stuff will tapped, but it exiles someone's graveyard when it comes into play. Because like, and it's not good in Commander a lot of times, just because you're playing against 3 players, the number of likelihood that they'll have a graveyard deck at the table, or at least something that every one hit is much higher. This will probably be a meta call decision. Like, if you are running a lot of tap effects and stuff, maybe you don't want this, just because you already have tap lands and stuff like that, and the tempo boost isn't good enough for the amount of times you're actually facing off against graveyard decks. So, I mean, it's a personal call and it's kind of a meta call in that sense. But for like 1 and 2 color decks, it is also like the cycling lands. Probably not too, it's not that as much of a liability to add, and also helps you get to that 7 land threshold for Field of the Dead, which is still one of the best cards in the format. And honestly, I wouldn't be opposed to it getting banned for the time being. But that's just me personally, just because it's one of those things where it's like, especially as we're getting more and more lands, it's one of those things where it's like, A, it kind of warps the game, and B, increasingly there's no reason for a deck not to run it. And I'm also kind of like, just like there's no reason, like, if you're playing a green deck that's 2 colors right now, you should be playing Scape Shift combo. You just should. Because it just works and is good. But that's a different question entirely. Next we got Brain Maggot, which is a 1 and a black for 1/1. When enters battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand, and you choose a non-land card from it. Exile that card until Brain Maggot leaves the battlefield. It's like a Kiteself Freebooter, except it's not a flyer, so it can't pressure walkers as well, but hits any cards and not just non-creatures. And honestly, I really like that. I think this is real solid because, like I said, like for both kind of like more aggro decks and for slower control decks, because it's just like this is, yeah, they can get the card back, but usually they're going to be spending a card to get rid of this thing. And even if it's like you play this on 2 and you take their 3-drop ramp, that is just such a great tempo step that honestly I think is just real solid in that sense, where and you get a look at their hands, you actually know what's coming and all those other things, and yeah, it's pretty good. Also play Card Sale Freebooter. Both of those cards are fantastic. But yeah, no, Brain Maggot. That's 2 weird curled things up, but they're maggots and in your brain. Don't think about the card too much. Also notice enchantment if you're playing like Abzan enchantments or like Orzhov or... Goodness, I wish that we had, I really want Daxos the Returned on Arena for Brawl, because that'd be a lot of fun with a lot of the Thero stuff. Packrat. It's Packrat. I don't know how to feel about Packrat. I know people like it and it is kind of a meme and things like that, but I just don't know really. I guess I just haven't really experienced the power of Packrat, and it could be cool, it could be interesting, but I don't know. For me, there's just not quite enough payoff for like that discard outlet quite yet. But who knows? I could be proven wrong. And I mean, we actually have a fair few rat cards now, and we have like the basis for a rat deck. Except we don't have a rat-based commander on Arena. Come on, give us Marinaur. That'd be cool. Yeah, no, I just don't know how this would be. I mean, again, it's meta-dependent, where it's like if you're playing against a lot of control decks and things like that, it's probably not great, because so no, you got board wiped and okay, all of your Packrat value's gone. But if you're playing kind of like a jank rats deck, sure, you can replace a rat colony with this, and it probably is a step up. Next up we got Waste Not, which is 1 black for enchantment. Whenever an opponent discards a creature card, put a 2/2 black zombie card token onto the battlefield. Whenever an opponent discards a land card, add black to your mana pool. Whenever an opponent discards a non-creature non-land card, draw a card. This is going to be definitely a very interesting one in certain decks. Like, obviously the idea is like, oh, we want to play a discard deck. I mean, where this really sees play in Commander is wheel decks, where that has the benefit of like, A, you have 3 opponents, you're actually like, oh, you wheel, and it's like, oh wow, there were just like 15 cards discarded, and oh wow, this is so much value. And you're not going to get that in Historic Brawl, and obviously there's not that many wheels. Like, the best one is Emergency Powers, there's also Dragon Mage, and wait, Emergency Powers doesn't even discard, that's just shuffle. So that doesn't work. So there's just like Dragon Mage, and there's probably some others that I'm missing, but there aren't that many wheels to really take advantage of this. And But I mean, if you are kind of building like a more casual discard deck, I don't mind this, but discard isn't quite strong of an archetype that I really would see this like being very good. Like obviously if you are building kind of build like some sort of like, what's his name, Spectre deck with Spectre Man, or Growths or some jank thing like that, yeah, it's good there, but I just don't see its place in the current like good decks of Brawl. Historic Brawl. Virulent Plague, which is a 3-mana enchantment, which is creature tokens get -2/-2. This card is bad. Okay, I mean, legitimately, this card is bad. Don't play this. It's meant to probably like specifically to counter Field of the Dead, but it's just such a specific thing, and it might be a problem. And also, like I said, you should be running Field of the Dead too, and it counsels your Field of the Dead as well. And also don't play it, because why would you hate token decks that much? Why would you do that, Wizards? Why? What did I ever do to you? I just want to play my Celestia Jank, and oh, then you just bring the orders and Virulent Plague to Arena and Historic. Oh no. My sad little Celestian heart. Forgotten Cave. It's forgotten. It's a cave. It's the Forgotten Cave. It's red cycling land. See previous notes. Dragon Master Outcast, which is 1 red for 1/1. It'd be for upkeep if you control 6 for wild lands. Put a 5/5 dragon creature token onto battlefield. Means a 1-mana 1/1, and it doesn't do much early, and like mono red aggro probably doesn't want this. But at the end of the day, it's one of those things where it's if you do untap with this and get a dragon, like, I mean, getting to 6 lands is not a problem in Historic Brawl. That is most likely going to happen in any given game. So it's not really like a 1-drop, but it's like it's a card that costs 1 mana, even if it doesn't do anything until later on. But Dragon Mat. So, but the thing is, like, even if it doesn't and it just like eats your removal spell, like, you just got to just eat one of your opponent's removal spells for 1 mana, so you almost certainly gain a mana advantage. And you know, even if you just take it once, that's just real solid. So I quite like Dragon Master Outcast in this. Like, I think it's quite solid for most red decks. Obviously you want to be like kind of a creature base and things like that, and typically I think it's one where you want to be a deck where you are also playing lots of creatures, and you might want to like have this be a lightning rod for some of your other creatures, because it's a very cheap lightning rod, and for that sake I actually quite like that. So yeah, I don't mind it. Obviously if you're playing a dragon deck, you know, respect to you. They're not very good right now, but you know, I still respect you for that, and it's probably not bad there either. Goblin Ruin Blaster, which is 2 in red for a 2/1 with haste, and it has kicker for 1 red, and when you're battlefield, if it was kicked, destroy target non-basic land. Honestly, for mono red, like even like mono red Towerbrand, I don't mind this at all. Like, I mean, 4 mana, like 2/1 haster that also Stone Rains, that's not something bad. I'm not Stone Rain, it's whatever the Stone Rain that's non-basic land. Because it's like I said, Field that is a problem. Even if it's just like, oh, I'm playing against this control deck, hit one of just their like good, like hit their command tower or something. That is such a huge tempo play for only 4 mana, and you get a hasty creature. I mean, obviously in goblins it's also good. So I think you really want to be more of an aggressive deck for this, but because it's, if you don't really care about the body, that's just too expensive for that effect. But the combination of just that effect and the body and like the hasty body makes me really like Rune Blaster quite a bit for those kind of decks. So yeah. Tranquil Thicket. It's tranquil. It's a thicket. It's the Tranquil Thicket. It's the green land. Also can go and get Rog. It can Divination for just 1 green. Ma'am, Potsy, you make green too good. In that specific deck, you're playing Get Rock Monster and you have a cycling land, and you have to Get Rock Monster out. Ancestral Mask, which is 2 and a green for an enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 for each other enchantment in play. Obviously, I would like this a lot more if we had more actual boggles. Paradise Druid does not count. Most of the hexproof creatures, they're not a boggle. As a dedicated boggles player, okay, not dedicated, but as an avid boggles player, we don't have any boggles, so Ancestral Mask isn't really quite a great boggle in that sense. But that said, if you're playing kind of an Enchantress deck, like this can actually just add a ton of power to the board out of nowhere. And if they don't have blockers, that could easily just kind of steal games where, yeah, you're not, I still don't like dedicated games where you are like, okay, let's put together a bunch of, like, let's just kind of Ultron it. It's maybe not the best plan right now. But Ancestral Mask could be interesting as kind of this, like, let's end the game and pay off, and just like, oh, I just played this and now, oh, it's got +10/+10, and on my evasive threat, and I can kill them that way, or sometimes that works. It's fine. And I mean, obviously you want to be an Enchantress deck, and I don't think this is fantastic, but I think it's fine, and I think it's playable. So yeah. I mean, obviously good if you're playing like Sayona or something like that, so. Next up we got Terravore, which is 1 green for a star with trample, and its power and toughness are each equal to the land cards in all graveyards. I think this is awful. Just awful. Like, it's not good. It requires so much setup, and like, maybe if we're playing like Gitrog, and specifically Gitrog, it's fine. Otherwise, it's just not quite there, and it's not quite good enough, and it's fine. You can get Gitrog, it's a decent threat, but yeah. Now, the fact that you can't even like guarantee to play it on 3 and have it not immediately die is kind of rough. So yeah, so I'm not huge on Terravore. Meddling Mage. It's Azorius for a 2/2. As it enters the battlefield, name an online card. The named card cannot be played. I think Meddling Mage is fantastic in this format. Like, obviously it can't get killed, but even if you're just like shutting down your opponent from casting their commander, that's real solid. And without spending a removal spell first, like, that's just a great tempo play. And yeah, like, insert most of the reasons Meddling Mage is good in other formats, and it'll be good in Historic Brawl for the same reasons. Like, obviously it's like not good in like Commander and like multiplayer formats, but if you're going 1-on-1, like, Meddling Mage does work. Like, I mean, obviously you don't, it's not like you also know the opponent's archetypes as well, but the thing is, you always know one card that your opponent can cast, assuming it's not cast already, and usually their deck at some amount really wants that card. And so if you have no information, you can just say, hey, you can't play Golos or whatever. And that's real solid. Maelstrom Pulse, which is 1 black and a green for sorcery. Destroy target non-land permanent and all other permanents with the same name as that permanent. Its sorcery speed and all of the permanents with the same name as that permanent is only really useful against token decks. But it is essentially a second Assassin's Trophy that is sorcery speed and cost 1 more. Doesn't give them a land. But isn't bad. I rather like Maelstrom Pulse quite a bit. I mean, it's just a clean and efficient removal spell. Not much else to say. It's also not, but also it's like not like Golgari's Starve removable spell, but it might, like, if you, I mean, it's a trade-off for instant speed, but like might replace like status statue for based on your own preferences. Knight of the Reliquary. 1 green and a white for a 2/2, and he gets +1/+1 for each land card in your graveyard. Now compare that to Terravore, who is a 0/0 if you won't have anything. Sure, it's all graveyards, but let's be honest, it's mostly beaters if you're building around that. You may tap her and sacrifice a forest and plains, and search your library for a Field of the Dead. I'm sorry, a land card. Or Field of the Dead. And put it into play, and then shuffle your library. Okay, it's a decent, it's a solid card that can, like, get big, and actually can get big actually decently, and it can tutor you Field of the Dead and whatever other utility lands you want. And the Reliquary is just a solid card. It's actually one of my favorite cards, and not just because it's Selesnya. But yeah, no, it has just kind of like turning, like, it's a tutor for lands, and that is very good. And obviously you don't want to be, it's not like good for, it's like, oh, it's like if you're too many colors, because you can only sacrifice forests and plain to make her work. So it's best in like either like mostly probably Selesnya or Abzan, but no, she does work, and we'll get you turning on your Field of the Dead in no time flat. Speaking of Field of the Dead, here's Ghost Quarter. It's add 1, or you can tap and sacrifice it to destroy target Field of the Dead. I'm trying not to I cannot overstate just how good Field of the Dead in this format it is, and I honestly kind of would advocate for it being banned, just because it just warps every game where it comes out. And so many games just against mini control decks will often kind of come down to who has Field of the Dead, and some things like that. Like some definitely different colors have better times dealing with it, but additions like Ghost Quarter might help with that, just because it's like you can only put, it's singletons, you can only have one Field of Ruin, and I personally like Field of Ruin better. I mean, there's debates both ways, because Ghost Quarter doesn't require mana to activate, but obviously, I mean, it's functionally a second Field of Ruin for you, and you know what? That's probably something you want to put in, assuming your mana is decent. And so if you're not running for 5 color, yeah, you should probably run for Ghost Quarter just to do a Feather Field of the Deads. Platinum Angel, which is, I believe, the final one. Yes, it is, but it is a 7 mana for 4 that says you can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game. It's one of those ones where it's like a lot of time you want to like cheat in Platinum Angel and do things like that, but I mean, it's not nothing, but it's like, it receives a lot of credit for being like this thing where it's like, oh, they have to like figure out some way to like if you can like cheat in the play, or can like allow you to do some cool combo or whatever, but like at the end of the day, it's fine. It's alright. I mean, it is expensive for a not great body, and yeah, there'll be situations where your opponent just can't deal with it and just can't close out a game, especially if you're playing like Mono Blue or something like that. I mean, obviously, I think I really like Platinum Angel and something like playing like Tezzeret Master of the Bridge, but generally, it's just like, it's fine. It's something fantastic, and typically you want your 7-drops to be a bit more impactful. So yeah, so that's kind of where I am on Platinum Angel. There's not many ways to cheat it into play and have it stick. And yeah, so that's about where I am on Platinum Angel myself. And yeah, that's the that is the anthology. So I think there's definitely some interesting things in there. Nothing that really just says like, ooh, this is this cool new deck we can build. Like, there wasn't any legendary creatures. But at the same time, we've been kind of getting our new stream of legendary creatures through the weekly guild hall commanders, so we've been getting that dynamic there. Yeah, no, definitely interesting to see, like, many of them in this one seem very focused, like, very specific, like, oh, Jerry was like, yes, we want to be in Merfolk, or Sigil the Enchantment, this is definitely just, it is specifically enchantment, and those will be nice upgrades to those decks. One thing that was nice is that there wasn't, I don't mind the fact that there weren't that many just like, oh, this is a generically good card. Words, I mean things. Like, this is a generically good card that was just like, oh, this will just be shoe into Golos or whatever like that. So this definitely does seem to benefit the mid-tier decks the most, and honestly, thumbs up to that. I am all for that. And also just getting those few more answers to Field of the Dead, I think, is really nice. Like, in Historic, they're definitely using this to pose to try to unrestrict Field of the Dead and make Field of the Dead more balanced in that way. But, yeah, so, who knows? Well, that's it for tonight. I hope you all enjoyed this. I don't know what to say. I'm happy to be back and making videos again. And, let me know what you think. Like, do you disagree with my evaluations and stuff like that? And remember, if you ever want to play some Historic Brawl, we got a fair few people in the server, link in the description below, as always, that are playing it. There's a rank you can sign up for that's just like, hey, do you want to, do you want to let other people who are looking for Historic Brawl games to be able to ping you and things like that, and I'll ping all the Historic Brawl players. You also have like Brawl and Standard and all the other arena formats and things like that. So, if you're interested, check that out. And yeah, well, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you have a wonderful night, and wonderful dreams. And as always, may your stories smile upon you.